Meanwhile, Checkpoint has learned that Quinn Patterson had previously been imprisoned for a knife attack on a police dog handler. Bruce Howat was on patrol when he noticed Quinn Patterson, who he suspected was vandalising a property in Hamilton. It was a minor offence, but what happened next still haunts the former policeman.
Of any trouble brewing. I marked the pen on paper hats, and next thing I realised he'd scarpered and run off down the hill on me. So I called on him to stop, and he didn't, so I got Cara out of the dog van. So we chased him down the hill, and I got to the corner of Tisdale and Radnor Street, sometime ahead of Cara. And then Cara arrived, and she went to the bushes at my right and started barking. So I went in to... Excuse me. Sorry.
Oh, it's all right. What year was this, Bruce?
1983.
Amazing that it's so vivid for you. So that 1983, 80.
Yep.
Extraordinary. Yep. So what's that? 34 years ago.
Yep.
And
you
you
never leaves you.
Yeah, it's absolutely vivid, isn't it? It's like you're there.
I am. When it just unfolds as I start to tell it. That's why. Yeah. Anyway, he stabbed me under the bushes. Let's call it quits at that. And I managed to overpower him, and I got the knife off him, and I threw it away. What felt like hundreds of yards, but in reality, it wasn't until the court case when I saw the photos, it was literally only about 2 or 3 feet away from him. What I didn't know was I'd lost complete use of my left arm at that stage because the radial nerve had been severed. Oh, shit, it's coming back. And I managed to handcuff him. It was only a dog and a do because you're used to doing that because you've got a dog on the lead.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So you had techniques to do it, and I handcuffed him. And to be honest, he was so small, I stood up. By that stage, I knew I was stabbed, because if people tell you they're got stabbing pains, they've never been stabbed because you actually never feel it.
And you must have been losing blood at a rate, were you?
A huge rate of knots. And so I picked him up. He was so small. I picked him up by his belt, and I was going to carry him back up to the police station because it wouldn't even be 100 yards away to the police station. I was going to carry him back. And I collapsed from loss of blood. And the only time a police dog is officially allowed to attack anyone without command is when they've attacked the handler. And so Cara came in, and from all accounts, she held him. By the time the cavalry got there, he just had the waistband of his pyjamas left, of his undies left. Everything else, she'd ripped every shred of clothing off him. He had bites from the top of him to the bottom. But she was what we call the soft biter. She never broke skin. He just had teeth marks all over him. And the cavalry came, but at that stage, my memory is non-existent.
And he was sentenced to what for this?
We went through, it was either 4 or 5 high court trials we went to. I was the very first time, and as I understood it in police legal history, that I was flown to the Court of Appeal in Wellington and had to give evidence. Usually that was just lawyers arguing, but I went there, and the judges granted another retrial. It was 4 or 5 I went through. I had to relive it, and in the end, the final judge says, we're going to convict him on grievous bodily harm because he was being done for attempted murder on me, because during it he kept telling me he was going to kill me with a few adjectives wrapped around it. And, it was, and he got sentenced to 18 months in prison, but because they get time off, they don't even do the full sentence. And I was living in Taumutu. I had a prison officer live next door to me, and he came and told me that he had been released on bail, and he was on parole, and he'd done a runner, he'd fled the country. The nightmares I had from that night, I had nightmares for 4 to 5 years from it.
Boy, it's raw still, isn't it, for you? I mean, you almost bled to death.
Yeah, I was down to half a pint of blood, the doctors told me. It took me over 10 years, probably more than 10 years, that if I was in someone's home and they swung around in the kitchen talking, holding the knife, that I wouldn't fall apart. So, what for me it was I stopped being a policeman that night, and I was just a victim like any other victim of a serious crime.
Bruce Howat, that was 3 decades ago. Bruce obviously thought he had dealt with it, but then suddenly, out of the blue yesterday, the name Quinn Patterson popped up associated with the shooting, and as you could hear, it was suddenly, instantly very real and very raw again.